Hello everyone, and welcome to another exciting episode of Solid Gold Stakeholders. And today we're delighted to have Sewela Langeni, author, bookstore owner, entrepreneur, read her book, Making Friends with Feelings. But here she is in real life. Welcome, Sewela.
Thank you so much for having me, Lynn.
It's been absolutely stunning to connect with you like this in our audio space. You've written a book called Making Friends with Feelings. What inspired you with everything else you're doing, the running of the bookstore, the secret job? You're absolutely a model inspiration for so many people. Is this your first children's book?
Yes, Making Friends with Feeling was my first book. It came out in 2023. And what inspired it, Lynn, was just raising boys. I'm a mom of two boys, 13 and 11, and just watching them grow and just starting to change how they interact with me, how they interact amongst themselves, how they even portray themselves to the world. Just noticing that there's some muting of voices that I'm seeing and they're not as free to express what's going on. And I think that's what inspired that, to just say, wait a minute, where is my chatterbox? Where is this little boy gone? And just wanting to create that space and conversations around the things we notice with the children around us.
When I first read the book, I was thinking, why is she written in a boy? Mm-hmm. But girls don't have the same issues with their feelings, do they? Or is it different for boys?
It depends. I mean, some moms have said they've seen it in their girls, but mostly it's a boy thing from when I talk to most moms. And even with experts that have now used this book in kindergarten and creches all around the country, they've said it's a thing that they mostly notice in boys. It's a societal thing. They become a bit more inward. Girls tend to find their voice, and they even if they don't talk to you as a parent, they're going to talk to somebody.
It's quite interesting because I once heard, little girls on the phone, like you go to school and you come back and you phone each other and everybody's talking. It's actually a part of a brain development in girls.
Absolutely.
So do you think it kind of holds boys back to not be able to express?
It does. I mean, it's been even proven psychologically that it does. And you see it even in relationships much later, where somebody just struggles to just say, this is what I feel. This is my preference. Everything is all pent up and comes out in a way that isn't ideal. But for girls, there's that community. I mean, you're right. I've seen them on Teams calls for hours. My boys will be on Teams calls, but there's nothing about what's going on with me. Mm-hmm. It's either I'm on a game, or did you watch that soccer match? And we know that some of the stuff is just how they are, right? But there must be also a room to just say, hey, I'm not okay. Hey, I had a bad day. Hey, I didn't like how that maths teacher spoke to me. Even if it's not a long-winded like us, we would go on and on, but just that space to just release that thing and acknowledge that you didn't like how it made you feel.
So the book has actually gone into schools, which I then imagine teachers use it to draw out the children in the space of how they feel. Is that how they're using it?
Yes, not in a formal sense that the Department of Education is rolling it out in schools, but I've been so privileged that it's gone out to certain schools who've bought it in their library, some teachers who've heard about it and incorporated it into their curriculum. A school like St. John's has used it in their young boys, just having to create that space as a purely boys' school. So the teachers were like, this is something we definitely see. And so they've incorporated in that way. So I found people that also do a curriculum around feelings. They use that together with the book to even have pictures where they're drawing, you're almost doing like a feelings meter. So it's a foundation that can go on for time to come.
That's beautiful. So I want to talk about your writer's journey. Did you write this book for yourself and your boys, or with a view to publication? And at what point did a publisher enter your journey?
This book, I think, has always had a twofold thing. I wrote it for my boys first to make them feel like they have space after I had even observed them. But then as a bookseller, it couldn't just be a book that will just stay with us. Often I get parents asking, where are the boys on the covers? Because there was a big movement, if you remember, Lynn, quite years back, we have girls and skin, girls and hair, girls and feeling like they belong, finding their voice, girls singing. Yeah. So many parents have always asked me, where are the boys on the covers? And Like that famous quote, if there's a book you are looking for, you write it. So it was always two-pronged. It was always going to be for them, but also as a bookseller, I knew that there was a demand out there for it. The publisher came into the picture, our common friend, Dushanka. I just said, look, there's a story that's been gnawing at me that I want to write. And she was like, go ahead and do it. So even before I wrote it, I knew who was going to publish it.
That's very lucky and very fortunate. You have a full-time job.
Yeah.
You have 2 children.
Yes.
You have a marketing degree. You have a full-day job. I know that you're a very religious and committed Christian. How do you fit this all in?
So everything that I do stems from my faith. The time to do everything, the strength, the wisdom, all of that is through Christ that works in me. It's not me. I'm just a vessel. That's what I believe. I'm a vessel to just get everything out.
That's so fascinating, and I envy you your faith. I'm a doubter and I'm a sort of pantheist, but I accept that and I see it shining through. In which case, seeing as you've brought it up, every book has, if you like, a core message, or what do we call in marketing, a big idea. Obviously, this is to make children feel okay with their feelings, but how do you tie that back into your Christian faith?
Lesedi, who's the imaginary friend?
The light.
The light. So Jesus is the light. So that's the connection. But I also understand that I'm in a world where not everybody believes everything I believe. So until someone asks me, that's where we get there. Because the light for many people can be many things. So the managing for me, Lynn, the anchor is that. And then practically there's people around you. You know, I've got people in my life that help me. The lady that helps us at home with all the housework. I mean, I'm here, who's ironing, who's cooking, you know. I have my husband who's also a pillar. When you guys are seeing me at events at night, he's staying with the kids, homework, pick up. They all text him to drive around and do things. So that support system is quite key. I'm very close to the teachers, very close to the moms around who will tell me, hey, I saw, your son wasn't okay. What's going on? So that community is also very, very important. I don't do stuff on my own. And that voice tells me, look up this person, reach out to this person. We're not meant to do this on our own.
It's a beautiful thing though, because you have your grounded faith, and yet it can speak beyond it or maybe beneath it to anyone, even if, for example, they're atheistic. Because children and the light is a beautiful metaphor, but it can actually pertain to any child. How did your children take the book?
They loved it. I actually have a video that my husband shot when the book arrived. It arrived on May, I think it was the 25th, because it was Africa Day. And they were paging through it, especially the youngest. He was like, Mommy, has this guy who illustrated this book, has he met me? Because these guys look just like me,
Sweet. Huge, huge. Book Circle Capital. When I first heard of you, I thought that your name was Sewela, like the woman in Dallas. And then I realized that you were Sewela. And we kind of connected from the beginning. I've also written a book, and I like to write anthropomorphic animals because any child can sort of identify into that. So a black child, a white child, a pink rabbit.
Yes.
But you chose specifically to make this young black children that's actually in a sense look like, and so that your children can relate. How did you choose the illustrator? Was it chosen for you? How did you work with that illustrator?
It was chosen for me, but it's somebody that just made sense. So Subi Bosa is the illustrator of the book. He's actually studied as an architect, but he's since illustrated tons of kiddies books. And when Dushanka, my publisher, said he wants Subi to do it, it was a no-brainer for me. His work is just so beautiful in showing the pictures. Sometimes illustrations can be so cartoony like, but he just went the human form. That's why when my boys immediately saw it, they could just see themselves in it. And that's the ethos of what I'm about, just that representation. Because sometimes if you don't see stuff, you believe they don't exist. And we know that, especially in the black communities, those role models children don't have. But in a book, that book could be, that
comes a role model.
Yes, that book could be that thing that makes a child believe that they can go after what they want to do.
What is the message of Making Friends with Feelings?
The main message in Making Friends with Feeling is belonging. Knowing that you belong and you can fully express yourself in just who you are.
Not only are you a writer, a worker, a mother, a Christian, like, the earth mother of Joburg, but you actually have a bookseller, a bookshop. Book Circle Capital, your bookshop. Tell us about tiny little bit about the genesis of that and what joy it's bringing you and how it's changing the book business in Johannesburg and maybe even in South Africa, maybe even in the world.
Book Circle Capital is an independent bookshop that focuses on African literature. We've been around since September 2017. It was initially founded by my husband, Sewela Langeni. He comes from a small town in the Northern Cape called Brettstown, just like 30 kilometers from DR. Most people would know where DR is instead of Brettstown. And so he grew up reading, and like the little boys and girls that I want to reach in my writing, books were his escape. There wasn't really much happening, and he's always loved books. And when he came to Johannesburg, he struggled to find books where it was written by Black authors and telling Black stories. He was just struggling, and he thought, why don't I just create that space? It was first a subscription business where people paid him some money and he would send them books. And it was mostly people from his small town. But over time, he realized there's more people that want these books. So why not create a space? When he unfortunately got retrenched from his day job, he took all of that and started a business. And then a couple of years into it, I came into it as an assisting spouse. And he was like, hey, you seem to be doing this better than me.
Take over.
And I was just coming in to support with my skills, marketing, eventing. I'm the people person. He's the one, the visionary behind. And I ended up just taking over like that. So the joy it brings me, Lynn, is sometimes I don't even have words to express it. I think it's my creative outlet. I mean, I never thought I'd write. The book selling came first, and then the author came afterwards. The whole facilitation of discussions, even the stories I encounter affirm me, it's like, okay, this is important. I think all of us want to know that we're doing something bigger than just ourselves. And Book Circle Capital gives me that. I know that I'm doing something bigger than myself. When I watch a child listening to a story on a Saturday morning, not forced by anybody, it's not a marks thing, and they're just engrossed in that author reading or singing. I mean, you and Sihle have come and done a thing at Book Circle Capital. Just that joy I see in children, the feedback I get from parents to say, oh, my child is now writing just stories for themselves. Or my child now loves reading at school. Or, people say, we met at your shop and we went on to do this idea. So it's just that meeting space where people feel comfortable enough to express themselves creatively. So Beautiful. That's the joy it gives me.
You've answered about your husband, about mother tongue, in particular, people who look like the children of the country, but the actual mother tongue being important for children to read in their mother tongue. Can you say a little bit about that?
The importance of reading in the mother tongue can never be overemphasized. We know that English is the main language of communicating amongst ourselves, but that has almost robbed children of their identity and their heritage in some way, because there's some stuff in our languages that cannot be translated. There's some stuff that cannot be explained in English. So it's important for children to read in that. And even though it's hard and it's more work for parents, we should try by buying books, by taking them to spaces where these languages are celebrated, by having a podcast like this one where mother tongue is celebrated and curated like this, because it's part of their identity, it's part of their heritage, it's part of affirming just who they are.
You've read now your book in English and in Sepedi, which will be on the Solid Gold Storytime platform. How important do you think it is for children to hear, in other words, the heard word? This is a podcast. But with your book reading, they could actually have the book in front of them and have you reading to them. So how important in the whole sort of literary space for little kids or for young children and their parents, because they've got to read the books over and over and over, how important is it that the heard word is heard?
I mean, the heard word is so important in children's learning. I was once invited at a school to come and talk about why are actual books still important? And I did some research around it. I'm in no way an expert, but from what I could get, I mean, hearing, these days we get so bombarded with the visual and we're leaving so much of the other senses behind. Therefore, that impacts how we consume content. So the hearing just makes you travel there and it makes your brain work a lot harder in painting those pictures if you're not looking at the actual pictures, in making your brain just absorb much more because there's no interruptions from other senses. You're literally just listening. I mean, this question just took me back to my childhood. I come from Limpopo in a place called Boahomu, and we would listen to radio at night, stories where it read, and we would not see any of the characters, but just listening to the voices just took us there. We were right in there, and emotionally we would feel, what the person was feeling on the other side. That is something that all of us need in part of our development, especially in learning for children.
Absolutely. We had record players in my day. I remember the first record player, Sparky's Magic Piano. I've never seen a drawing of Sparky, but I could probably recite the entire story to you now because, yes, it stimulated imagination.
Absolutely.
And if I had a book when I was very little, I could turn the page exactly at the word, even though I didn't know it was on the page. So that must have been read to me and read to me and read to me.
Over.
So we've absorbed it. It's almost like writing for children brings out the inner child again if you can actually reach that space. Do you feel that?
I completely agree. Every time we have an author, just a couple of weeks ago, we had Salamina Mosese reading her latest book, Newa's Invisible Blanket. I was so fulfilled. She read in English and she read in Sepedi. Just her reading in my mother tongue just took me to places. That stimulation is beyond words, and we need a lot of that. Even just when I was reading now for this podcast in my mother tongue, it got me so excited, and I don't want to lose that language. And now, especially with city kids, it's something we have to be intentional to bring back.
Very much so. And I know that Book Circle Capital is devoted as such to children's books and other books, but mother tongue. I've done some research in other bookstores also to see where mother tongue children's books are, and there's a dearth of them for their own internal reasons and external reasons. And people say parents don't want their
Supply
children
and
to
demand.
read. Yeah, well, exactly. You are the exception to this rule. Do you think that parents want children to read or to listen to stories in their mother tongue?
They do. But unfortunately, it's something you're going to have to be very intentional about it. As a parent myself, I remember times where my children were dragging me to read and I'd rather not because I've had a long day. And so this is where, as a parent, you're going to have to really dig deep and do it even when you don't feel like it. I think it's an intent, but it has to be followed with some action, unfortunately. We've seen even some kids who don't know how to read yet, but they can recite a story because it's been read to them over and over. And it goes back to that point you made around hearing versus reading. So parents do want to do it. And I think if they have got spaces where they can find the stuff, even when they are tired, they'll have that motivation to want to keep doing it.
Put on the podcast.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
Or a road trip where some of the story songs are like, play it again, mum, play it again,
Yes.
where your eyes, we're oversaturated with screens, and particularly with little kids now, where they can stimulate themselves out of consciousness.
Even commuting to school. So just have a rule with the kids to say no screens when we're driving to school. Can we just listen to a story?
Absolutely.
There are parents who are already doing that, who are struggling to enforce a language at home because kids are so used to it everywhere they go. So they said, okay, what I've decided with my kids is when they drive to school, we listen to a Sizulu story time or Sizulu podcast, because in that way the kids get the language. We all know that you lose a language if you're not hearing it.
But then it's also, then as the child grows or as the child develops, they will have their mother tongue. They will understand English because we all have to.
Yes.
And then you can see, hear, taste, touch. It's essential experience.
It is.
Sewela Langeni, thank you so much for coming in, reading to us and talking to us. You're an absolute inspiration, and I wish you absolute joy and success evermore.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me on Solid Gold.
You've been listening to another episode of Solid Gold Stakeholders, brought to you by Solid Gold Podcasts. Thank you for listening.